Hi and welcome back to my channel. If you're new, welcome. So I just wanted to pop in real quick since I've been away for so long. Honestly, I was feeling burnt out and I didn't like that I started dreading making videos, and so I decided to step away for a little bit. I was still doing remakes, all of which you can check out on my Instagram page. Today's video is actually one that I did while I was away. I also took the time to explore other ventures and work on other areas of my craft, which I'll get more into later on. But right now, let's get started. Alright, so the shirt I used was of course a thrifted men's shirt. As for the sheer fabric, I used a burnout organza, which was on the stiff side, so I didn't find it too difficult to work with, and the print had a nice velvety texture. I took the shirt apart, starting with the sleeves, followed by the side seams. Next, I removed the front panels, leaving behind the yoke. To do that, I drew a line across the top 1 inch above the breast pocket. Then starting at the hem, I cut 1/2 inch away from the button plackets, up to the line, then across. Here I also did the same for the other side. Moving on to the back, using my seam ripper, I opened up the yoke to remove the back panel. And this is what I was left with. You could add your own spin by leaving the back intact and only removing the front, or vice versa. It's entirely up to you. I suggest trying this on before you continue because you might find that the shoulder hangs over a little. If so, go ahead and remove the extra, but just remember to leave a 1/2 inch allowance. Now we'll set this aside for later along with the sleeve cuffs, which I removed from the sleeves in preparation for the next step. Taking one of the sleeves, I gave it a nice press, then went ahead and traced it onto a sheet of paper. As you can see here, I marked the back, front, and center of the pattern. If you're wondering how to tell the back from the front, the sleeve placket usually goes towards the back. After roughly tracing the sleeve, I used a ruler to clean up the lines. Now we're going to do what's called the slash and spread method. I first drew slash lines by dividing the sleeve into 4 parts. I then divided the 4 panels even further, so I had 8 in total. To keep them in order, I quickly numbered them because now we're going to cut along the slash line, stopping about 1/8 inch from the top. Afterwards, I placed it on a sheet of paper that's about 2 times wider than the sleeve pattern, so I'll have room to spread the panels. I aligned the center of the paper with the center of the sleeve, then taped them together at the shoulder point. Starting at the center, I spread the first panel 1 inch away, then the others 2 inches apart. I did the same for the other side. And of course you want to tape each panel down as you go along. I started with 1 inch because as you can see here, the center will be equal to 2 inches as well. This next part is totally optional, but I wanted to add a little fullness at the shoulders as well. So I spread the 3 center panels at the sleeve cap by 1 inch. I then measured and marked another inch above the shoulder point before reshaping and cutting out my final pattern. Okay, so here I have my organza folded in half with the selvages together. The back pattern I also folded in half and pinned 2 inches from the fold. As for the front, I used one of the front panels and pinned it 2 inches from the selvage. There were holes in the selvage, so I made sure not to include it. I added the extra couple inches to make the blouse a little more roomy. I also added a 1/2 inch allowance where the front joins the yoke, the armholes, and the hem. Before sewing, I needed to transfer my sleeve markings. On the back side of the sleeve pattern, I marked where I wanted the new sleeve placket to be, then transferred it onto the sleeves. Along the sleeve caps, I marked the shoulder points and the notches for the added fullness. Starting with the back, I sewed 2 rows of gathering stitch along the top. After gathering the back, I laid out the back yoke and the panel with wrong sides facing, then sandwiched the panel between the yoke. So I ended up pushing the gathers towards the middle because I noticed when I spread them out too much, they warped the armholes. Initially, I was planning on gathering the front pieces as well, hence the 2 rows of gathering stitch, but I decided to do pleats instead. That said, the gathering stitch did come in handy, so I'd recommend doing at least 1 row a ½ inch from the top. Starting with one side of the button placket, I took a front panel, making sure I had the correct one, then placed the center front along the raw edge with right sides together. In doing so, I overlapped the edge of the yoke a ½ inch by using the gathering stitch as a guide. Then from the gathering stitch down to the hem, I sewed a ½ inch from the edge. Here's what that looks like once it's sewn. I then turned the panel back on the right side and pressed the seam flat. And of course I went ahead and did the same thing on the other side. Now it was time to finish the yoke. To do that, I turned the edge under a ¼ inch, then pinned it to the yoke following the gathering stitch. To take in the added fullness, I made a few small pleats in the center. Before sewing, I checked that the pleats were evenly spaced on both sides, then sewed across the top along the fold. Moving on to the sleeves, I first cut the slits open. At the last minute, I moved mine inward about 1 inch. To finish the slit, I cut a strip of fabric approximately 1 by 6 inches. With right sides together, I pinned it along the slit, then sewed a ¼ inch from the edge. The corner is a little tricky to sew, but basically when you get about a ¼ inch past the corner with the needle down, turn the fabric to sew the other side. Afterwards, I trimmed the ends and clipped the corners so it'll be much easier to sew the second time around. I then turned the edge under twice and finished with a straight stitch. One last thing I did was sew a diagonal line across the fold. I'll show you why later. I started off by sewing 2 rows of basting stitch between the notches on the sleeves. Then, with right sides together, I pinned the ends of the sleeve to the armholes before gathering the sleeve cap. Just to quickly point out, I use my serger to finish the edges as I go along. After attaching the sleeves, I folded the sleeve in half with right sides together, then pinned, matching the underarm seam. From there, I also pinned the sleeves and side seams before sewing the seams all at once. So the reason I made the diagonal stitch was so I could close the slit by having one side overlap onto the other. Now since the cuffs are pre-made, when you do that you gotta make sure the slits overlap in the same direction as the cuff once it's buttoned. Once I figured out which side goes on top, I pinned it in place, then went ahead and sewed 2 rows of basting stitch. Here you could also do pleats instead. Afterwards, I gathered the sleeve hem until it was the same width as the sleeve. Then with one end of the slit folded under and the cuff facing the correct side, I sandwich the hem between the open end of the cuff. As for the hem, I turn it under twice by 1/4 inch, then sewed it in place, and we are done. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this tutorial helpful, drop a comment below. Also, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you haven't already. Until next time.